The cave was darker than space. Jax moved slowly, his boots sinking into the damp ground. He held a weak flashlight in one hand and a blade in the other. Every sound echoed around him, his own breath, the dripping water, and the sharp crack of tiny rocks falling behind him. He had been warned not to enter this part of the planet, but warnings didn't matter anymore. The war had already reached Earth, and now humans had no choice but to chase their enemies to the farthest corners of the galaxy. The spider folk, as humans called them, were silent killers. Half arachnid, half humanoid creatures with long limbs and red-black eyes. They didn't talk. They didn't trade. They just came and took what they wanted: resources, weapons, and sometimes even people. Jax was a scout, sent ahead of the main unit. His mission was to find signs of enemy movement in the caves beneath the ruined alien colony. What he found instead made his stomach twist. Thick webs covered the walls. Not old ones, fresh, wet, shimmering with sticky threads that glowed softly in the dark. Something was living down here. He raised his flashlight slowly, and then he saw it. Something moved fast along the wall, faster than a person. It stopped just above him. Jax stared up and froze. A pair of glowing violet eyes stared back. Then, the creature uncurled from the shadows. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin like smooth obsidian and limbs that looked like they could tear metal. Her upper body was humanoid, a woman's form, strong but slim. Her lower half was pure spider sharp. Legs, a thick abdomen, and delicate threads of silk falling from her fingertips. But what shocked Jax most was her face. She didn't snarl. She didn't hiss. She looked afraid. She didn't move toward him. She backed away. He aimed his weapon anyway. "Stay back," he shouted, voice trembling. She paused. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Instead, she lowered her eyes. A strange, low clicking sound echoed from her throat. It wasn't threatening. It almost sounded like ... sadness. Jax didn't know what to do. He had expected to fight. He had prepared to kill. But this wasn't a monster lunging at him. This was a girl, alone in a webbed cave, afraid of him. Behind him, something snapped. He turned fast only to see more webs stretching behind him. He had walked right into a trap. He spun back to the girl. "You did this?" She looked down as if ashamed. She raised one of her clawed hands slowly and pointed at his leg. Jax looked down. A fine thread was wrapped around his boot. Another was now circling his arm. And they weren't pulling tight, they were holding him still. Gently, she took one step forward. Jax raised the blade again, but she didn't flinch. She crouched, spider-like, and reached toward his boot. Her fingers moved carefully, like she didn't want to scare him. She sliced the thread with one of her claws and backed away again. "What the hell are you?" he muttered, confused. She tilted her head. Her mouth opened again, and this time she made a sound, soft, shaky, like a whisper wrapped in a web. Double quotes, not ... enemy. His heart skipped. "You speak English?" "Learned, watching, listening." Her voice was broken but clear. "You're not with them?" "Not with the raiders?" She shook her head. Then, with trembling arms, she drew a circle in the air. "They ... hunt me too." That was when he noticed the gashes on her side. Deep cuts. Old and new, healed with silk. Some were still oozing. She had been fighting. Not just to survive, but maybe even to protect something. Jax lowered his weapon a little. "Then why didn't you run?" She looked at him. Her eyes softened. "You ... came alone. I thought maybe different." He didn't know how to respond. For the first time in weeks, he felt something other than fear or anger. He felt ... curious. "What's your name?" She touched her chest with one clawed finger. "Zelra." Jax took a deep breath. "I'm Jax." They stared at each other in silence, the air between them thick with confusion and fear, but not hate. Not any more. Suddenly, from deeper in the cave, a sharp roar echoed. Heavy footsteps approached. The walls trembled. Zelra's eyes went wide. She turned and launched herself across the ceiling, wrapping a thick web across the passage. She looked back. At him. Hide. Jox didn't ask questions. He followed her deeper into the shadows as something monstrous broke through the outer tunnels, roaring in a voice that didn't belong to any human or spider, whatever it was. It was hunting both of them. And in that moment, the soldier who had come to kill found himself standing beside the very creature he was sent to destroy, now hiding from something far worse. The walls shook again. Something massive was coming, and it wasn't subtle. It crashed through rock like it was paper. Jox and Zelra crouched in a small side tunnel, their backs pressed against the cold stone. Jax held his breath. His heart pounded so loud it felt like the monster could hear it. The web Zelra had placed across the passage shimmered in the dim light. A trap, or maybe just a warning barrier. The beast entered. It had more legs than any natural creature should. Its body was bulky, covered in armor-like plates that gleamed like metal. And its face, if it even had one, was hidden behind a mask of bone and flesh. It sniffed the air, long feelers twitching, and let out a low, gurgling sound that sent a shiver up Jox's spine. Zelra held up a finger, signaling him to stay quiet. He obeyed. The thing paused at the web. It touched the strands with one long claw and made a clicking noise. Then, without warning, it slashed through the threads and screeched. Zelra moved instantly. She leaped upward, silent and smooth, crawling along the ceiling like a shadow. She dropped a thick line of web and looped it around the monster's head, yanking it backward. The creature stumbled, roaring. Jox raised his blade, unsure if he should fight or run. Go! Zelra hissed from above. I'm not leaving you. Jox shouted. She didn't argue. Instead, she spun more webs, trapping the creature's limbs as best she could. Her speed was unreal. She moved like a dancer, graceful and terrifying. But she was bleeding again. One of the monster's claws had caught her side. Jox charged in. He dove low, sliding across the slick ground, and jabbed his blade between two plates of the beast's armor. It screamed. They fought together, man. And Spider-Girl, like a strange pair pulled together by fate. She slowed the beast. He aimed for the weak spots. It took everything they had. Finally, the thing collapsed, shaking the cave one last time before going still. Jox dropped to one knee, breathing hard. What the hell was that? Zelra stood over the dead monster, her chest rising and falling. Hunter, sent to kill me. Why? She turned to him. Because I ran. She walked slowly to the corner of the cave and reached behind a pile of web-wrapped rocks. She pulled out something small, glowing blue, shaped like a crystal orb. This is what they want, she whispered. I stole it from my kind. What is it? She hesitated. Life seed, 4 eggs. Only queens carry it. Jox stared. So you're a queen? No, she said quietly. But I loved one. He blinked. You're saying the queen is dead? Zelra nodded. They killed her, took everything. I found what was left ... and ran. Jox looked at her injuries, the pain in her eyes, the way she clutched the glowing orb. And now you're alone. She looked down. Not anymore. He didn't answer. He wasn't sure what to say. The war had made everything simple, us versus them, human versus alien. But this was not simple. Jox looked around the chamber. We need to get out of here. If more come, they will. Then, we move now. Zelra tucked the orb into a small pouch on her abdomen and nodded. She took his hand, her claws curling carefully so she didn't hurt him. Her touch was gentle, surprising. They moved together through the tunnels, deeper and deeper, until the Jintental. Light from above was gone. At one point, they paused at a narrow ridge. Below them was a dark pit filled with bones, human and alien. A graveyard. This is where they feed, Zelra said. They bring prey here. Jock shook his head. We have to warn command. They don't know about this. She looked at him. Your people won't listen. They'll listen to me. If I show them proof, Zelra held out the orb. Take it. They will believe. He reached for it, then paused. Won't you need it? Her eyes softened. I trust you. Jox took the orb, feeling its warmth in his hand. Somehow, it pulsed like it was alive. Then they heard its footsteps, many of them. From above. More hunters. Zelra whispered. Jax tightened his grip. We fight? She smiled for the first time. No, we run together. And so they did, through twisting tunnels and black corridors. A human soldier and a spider girl who was never his enemy. The galaxy had made them strangers. But survival was making them something else. Something no one expected. The tunnels twisted like the inside of a dying creature. The deeper they went, the warmer it got. The air was heavy now, damp, thick, and humming with strange vibrations. Jax kept close to Zelra. She moved quickly, but her steps were careful. She knew this place well. Each turn she made seemed chosen for a reason, even when everything looked the same to him. Behind them, the sound of the hunters grew louder. There were at least 4 now. He could hear their claws scraping against the stone, their angry hisses echoing in the dark. These weren't like the first one. These were faster, meaner, and hungry. They don't stop, Zelra said softly. Jax nodded, breathing hard. What? Do they want now? The orb? She shook her head. Me. They don't want me to tell the truth. What truth? Zelra paused. Her eyes, glowing in the dark, looked toward him. That the war was never started by us, that we were defending ourselves. That humans were lied to. Jock stopped. His legs froze. What did you say? She looked back at him as if waiting to see if he'd turn on her. I've seen your broadcasts. Your soldiers believe we attacked first, but it wasn't us. Jox felt dizzy. Then who was it? Zelra stepped closer, her voice shaking. It was another species. They wear our skins. They used our tech. They destroyed your outposts and blamed us. Our council begged to explain, but your leaders never let us speak. Jax's fingers clenched into fists. That can't be true. I saw the attacks. I saw the damage. She nodded slowly. So did I, but they silenced the real voices. They destroyed those who tried to bring peace. The hunter's hissing grew sharper. Closer. Jax backed away from her. His training screamed at him. Enemy, manipulation, lies. But something else inside him, something human, told him she wasn't lying. Why are you telling me this? Because you stayed. Because you helped. Because you didn't kill me. Jox lowered his weapon. If what you're saying is true, then the whole war is a mistake. She nodded. A deep roar cut through the air behind them. The hunters were here. Zelra grabbed his hand. No more time. They rushed forward, Zelra dragging him toward a broken crevice in the wall. She squeezed through easily. Jox had to crawl. On the other side was a large, dark chamber. The walls sparkled with crystals, and in the center was a nest woven from golden silk. It looked like a throne, like something holy. This was her chamber, Zelra whispered. The Queen's. Jox looked around, stunned. He could feel something. In the air, something ancient and powerful. She raised the peace banner here once, Zelra said. Before they came, before they burned it. Jox stared at the glowing orb in his pouch. And that's why they hunt you. Because you carry what's left. Zelra nodded. Suddenly, the wall behind them exploded. The hunters had arrived, were larger than before, taller than Jacques, with armor made from stolen bones and sharp claws that could rip a man apart. One of them screeched, pointing at the orb in Jacques' pouch. Another rushed forward. Jacques didn't think. He moved on instinct. He ducked, rolled, and sliced upward with his blade, cutting deep into the creature's leg. It roared and stumbled. Zelra shot webs from both hands, pulling another one off the ground and slamming it into a wall of spikes. But there were too many. One tackled Jacques from behind. He fell hard, gasping. The beast raised a claw. Then Zelra screamed, a sound unlike anything he had heard before. Not fear, not pain. A command. She launched herself into the air, her limbs moving with blinding speed. She hit the creature hard, knocking it off Jacques, but its claws sank into her back. She cried out. Falling to the ground, Jax ran to her side. Blood ran down her side. Her breathing was shallow. No, stay with me, Jacques said, holding her. She looked at him with tired eyes. Take the orb. Find the truth. End the war. He stared down at her. Not without you. He stood and turned toward the monsters. I don't care what you are, he shouted, blade shaking in his hand. I won't let you touch her. Something burned inside him, something fierce, protective, raw. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a witness, and maybe something more. The monsters charged. Jacques gritted his teeth and screamed. The chamber lit up. Not from him, but from the orb. It was glowing like fire. Asterisk. The light from the orb was blinding. It filled the ancient chamber like a second sun. The hunters froze mid-charge, their claws raised, their bodies stiff. Even the crystals on the cave walls pulsed in rhythm with the orb's glow. Jax didn't understand it, but he didn't question it either. He stood tall in front of Zelra, the orb glowing brighter in his hands. Almost alive. The hunters hissed and backed away. Zelra's voice was weak behind him. They fear it. Jacques glanced back. Why? What is it really? She coughed, her body trembling. The orb holds the Queen's command. Her will. Her last message. Jacques looked down at the orb. The light inside was swirling now, faster, stronger. And then he heard something. A voice. It didn't speak in words, but in feelings. It poured into his mind like warm water. He felt sorrow, pain, hope, and love. He saw flashes, visions of a beautiful spider queen trying to unite two worlds. She stood before human leaders, unarmed, begging for peace. And then he saw her fall, betrayed by someone wearing a human face, but it wasn't a human. Not really. The true enemy wore the skins of both sides. They wanted war. They fed on chaos. And they had made sure no one ever learned the truth. The orb showed it all. When the vision ended, Jacques felt changed. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a carrier of truth, and truth was dangerous. The hunters recovered and hissed again. But they didn't attack, not now. The light from the orb made them hesitate. One of them spoke a deep, rattling voice. Return it, or die. Jacques stepped forward. I saw what you did. You killed the queen. You caused this war. The hunter laughed. We shape the future. War brings power. Peace is weakness. Zelra tried to rise, but her legs gave out. Don't let them take it. I won't, Jacques said. He held the orb high. The hunter lunged, but the orb pulsed again, this time brighter, hotter. A blast of energy shot outward, knocking the hunters off their feet. Webs ripped. Rocks shattered. One of the hunters didn't move again. The others growled and retreated into the shadows. But not before one gave a final threat. This is not over, human. You have made yourself a target. They vanished. Silence returned to the chamber. Jacques rushed back to Zelra, who was barely conscious. "You're okay," he whispered, placing the orb beside her. She blinked slowly. "You ... touched it. It accepted you. I saw everything." "You? Understand now?" He nodded. "Yeah, and I can't go back to my people the same. If I say what I saw, they won't believe me." Zelra reached out with one clawed hand and touched his chest. "Then don't tell them. Show them." He looked down at the orb. "I'll bring this to command, to the right people. But they'll try to stop me." "I'll come with you," she said quietly. He stared at her, surprised. "They'll shoot you on sight. Then I'll stay in the dark." "No," he said firmly. "If we do this, we do it together." Zelra smiled faintly. "Then together it is?" He helped her to her feet. Her legs were weak, but she could walk. She leaned on him as they climbed out of the Queen's chamber, slowly returning through the winding tunnels. Outside the caves, the alien sky was turning orange. The twin suns were rising. Jax stood at the edge, breathing the strange air. It was quiet, peaceful, but he knew that peace would not last long. Zelra looked out with him. "Where will you go?" "To the surface base," he said. "There's a station. I can transmit proof. Once they see what's inside the orb, they'll have to stop the war. And if they don't?" He met her eyes. "Then we find others who will listen. Not everyone wants blood," she nodded. "Some want truth." They started walking toward the ridgeline, the orb safely wrapped in Jax's pack. Behind them, the cave closed like a mouth shutting on a terrible secret. But it wasn't secret anymore. For the first time, a human and a spider girl walked the same path. Not as enemies, not as prey and predator, but as something new, something that could shake the stars. Jax and Zelra traveled across the cracked land in silence. The alien winds howled through the canyons. Once, this world had been full of green life. Now, it was nothing but ash and dust, thanks to the war. Jax kept scanning the sky. "Where?" 2 kilometers from the outpost. "After that ridge, there's a straight shot to the base." Zelra stayed close to him, limping slightly. Her wounds were healing slowly, but she hadn't complained once. "You trust them?" she asked softly. "I trust some of them," Jax said. "But command?" "Not fully. That's why we need evidence. The orb is proof." Zelra touched the pouch in his bag where the orb rested. "The truth won't save us if they choose to ignore it." He looked at her. "Then we won't give them that choice." They reached the edge of the ridge and stopped. Below them was the human forward base, tall towers, blinking lights, soldiers walking patrol with rifles ready. Gunships hovered above the landing zones. Metal fences kept out creatures. Drones buzzed in the air. Jax pulled out his small radio and clicked it on. "Scout Jax, reporting in. I'm returning from recon with high-value intelligence. Request clearance to enter. Priority Alpha." There was a pause. Then a voice came back, cold and firm. "Scout Jax, your signal is 2 days overdue. Status? I was ambushed. Survived. I'm not alone. I have information that can end the war." Silence again. Then, "Proceed to Gate 3. Keep hands visible. No sudden moves." Jax turned to Zelra. "We go down together. Don't speak unless I say, and whatever happens, stay close to me." She nodded. As they walked down, soldiers gathered at the gates. Their weapons were raised. When they saw Zelra, their fingers tightened on triggers. Jax stepped in front. "She's not hostile. She's not the enemy. I have proof." The lead officer, a tall woman with gray armor and sharp eyes, walked forward. "That thing behind you is a spider. You expect us to let it inside?" Jax didn't flinch. "She saved my life. And she carries the truth about who really started this war. Let command decide that, the woman snapped. You both move slow. One wrong move and you're both dead. They were led into the base through scanners and checkpoint after checkpoint. All eyes were on Zelra, her legs, her skin, her eyes. She looked different, alien, dangerous, but she said nothing. Even when soldiers muttered insults and one even spit near her feet, Jox clenched his fists but said nothing. Inside the main building, they were taken to a steel room. Cameras watched every corner. A man entered. Commander Riles, cold, clean-shaven, with medals across his chest. He sat across from Jax. You're a respected scout, Riles began. That's the only reason you're not in chains. Explain. Jax placed the orb on the table. This is a life seed. It carries the memories of the Spider Queen. She tried to make peace. We killed her, but we were tricked. Tricked? Riles raised a brow. Yes, Jock said. There's another race. They look like us. They look like them. They staged attacks to start the war. This orb shows everything. Zelra finally spoke, her voice quiet but clear. We were hunted too. We were blamed for crimes we didn't commit. My queen died trying to stop it. Riles didn't blink. You expect me to take the word of an alien? No, Jock said. I expect you to watch what's inside. He pushed the orb forward. It began to glow. The room dimmed. Images formed in the air, visions from the Queen's memory. Soldiers watched. They saw the truth. The fake humans in masks. The staged raids. The destruction of peaceful colonies. The Queen's death. When the light faded, no one spoke. Finally, Riles stood. This ... changes nothing. Jock stared. What? You went a WO. You brought an enemy into our base. That orb is now military property. It'll be buried in a lab. You saw what I saw. This war is built on lies. Doesn't matter. Riles said coldly. The people want victory, not confusion. We give them that truth, we lose control. So no, this ends here. Two guards stepped forward. Jax stood up. You'll have to shoot me to take her. Zelra moved beside him, claws slightly raised. Riles sighed. Very well. Throw them both in holding. We'll decide what to do with them tomorrow. As the guards grabbed them, Zelra whispered, You were right. They don't want truth. Jox nodded. Then we find another way. As the cell doors slammed shut behind them, Jox knew one thing for sure: he couldn't trust command. But maybe, just maybe, the truth wasn't dead yet. He still had the orb, and maybe someone out there would listen. The holding cell was cold and silent. Bare metal walls. A single bench. No windows. Jax sat with his back against the wall, his fists clenched. Across from him, Zelra crouched low, her spider legs folded under her. She had barely spoken since the door closed. We were fools to trust them, she said. Finally, Jax shook his head. No, we were right to try. They were the fools for not listening. He reached into his shirt and carefully pulled out the orb. Zelra blinked. How did you still have it? They searched everything. Not everything. I slid it inside the back of my suit while we were walking. They took a decoy, the empty case. A smile touched her lips. You are clever. No, I'm just done. Letting others control the truth. The orb glowed softly, its light warming his fingers. It was quiet for now, but alive. We can't stay here, he said. If they bury the real story, this war will never end. There are others who will believe, Zelra whispered. On your side. And mine. Jox looked up. Do you know where? She nodded slowly. The free web, hidden in the eastern mountain valleys. My kind who still follow the old ways. They want peace. They wait for hope. And on Earth, there's a rebel channel. Old military, journalists, defectors. They broadcast secrets, real ones. If I reach them, they'll spread the truth. Jack stood and walked to the door, testing the lock. It didn't budge. We need out, now. Zelra moved to the ceiling, scanning for weaknesses. There's a vent. Thin, but I can break it. If you lift me. Jax crouched, his hands locked. Together. Let's do it. She climbed on his shoulders and reached the vent. Her claws worked fast. Within seconds, the grate dropped softly to the floor. She looked down. I'll clear the way. Then call for you. Be careful, Jax said. With a nod. She slipped inside like a shadow. The minutes crawled. Every sound outside the cell made Jax tense. Then finally a soft knock on the door. A click. The door creaked open. Zelra stood there, her eyes glowing faintly. A guard was tied up in the hall behind her. Jax stepped out. Remind me never to fight you, she gave a small grin. I'll remind you if you forget. They moved quickly through the base. Most of the soldiers were asleep or off duty. Only a few patrolled, and they stayed in the main corridor. Jax and Zelra kept to the shadows. In a small room marked communications, Jax found a working uplink console. He turned to Zelra. This is it. If I get a signal out to the rebel net, they'll hear the orb. They'll broadcast the truth across colonies. Zelra handed him the orb. He placed it gently into the input tray. The console flickered. Lights blinked red, but then turned green. Uploading, Jax muttered. Come on, work. Suddenly, alarms blared. The base lit up in red. They know, Zelra said. They must have set alerts for this console. Jax tapped faster. Almost there. 90%. Heavy boots echoed down the hall. Zelra grabbed his arm. We must go. Not yet. 10 more seconds. The console beeped. Transmission complete. Jax grabbed the orb and pulled it free. It's out. They have it, Zelra smiled. Then it begins. Gunfire exploded down the hallway. Jax ducked behind the wall as bullets slammed into the doorframe. We're surrounded. He shouted. XEL launched a web up into the ceiling and grabbed Jax. Hold on. She swung them up through a broken duct. Bullets chased their shadows but missed. They crawled through the airways, the base shaking with boots and orders. Jax panted, holding the orb close to his chest. We need out of the perimeter. Once we're clear, we find a ship. There is one, Zelra said. Old scout vessel. Unused. I saw it on the landing pad. Perfect. They reached a small maintenance hatch and dropped onto the landing deck. Only one guard stood nearby. He turned too late. Zelra stunned him with a web to the face. They ran to the ship. Jax jumped into the pilot's seat. You ever flown one of these? No, Zelra said, climbing in beside him. But I trust you. Jax fired the engines. Hold tight. The engines screamed. The ship lifted, shaking the pad as it took off. Soldiers fired from the ground. But they were too late. Jax flew them high above the clouds into the edge of space. The world below burned red and gold under the sunrise. He turned to Zelra. We did it. No, she said, touching the orb. You did it. He stared at her. What happens now? She looked out the window. Now ... We wait for the galaxy to hear the truth and decide. The small scout ship drifted quietly above the clouds, hidden from radar. Inside, Jack sat at the console, reading the incoming signals. They got the transmission, he said. The rebel net confirmed it went viral. Zelra watched him from the co-pilot seat, her violet eyes steady. And? They're broadcasting it across the colonies. Multiple planets are listening. Some are already questioning the war. That is good, she said softly. Jax didn't smile. Command placed a bounty on me, labeled me a traitor. Said I was brainwashed by the enemy. Zelra lowered her gaze. And me? They called you a war criminal? A seductive infiltrator. Said I'd been lured by your tricks. She didn't react. Not with anger. Not with sadness. Just silence. They're afraid, Jox added. Afraid people will believe what we shared. Because it's true, she whispered. And truth always makes liars tremble. The orb sat between them, glowing steadily. Now it was more than just a memory. It was a symbol. The last voice of a queen who had wanted peace and was killed for it. Suddenly, the ship's radar pinged. Someone's tracking us, Jack said. One ship, not military, Zelra leaned in. Could be free web. Jox opened the channel. A voice crackled through. Scout ship, do not power down. This is free web vessel Harvin's Hope. We come in peace. You are safe. Jox gave a long breath of relief. That's them. Minutes later, a large silver ship appeared on their left. Smooth curves, no weapons visible, a living webwork of metal and silk. It docked beside their small scout vessel. The hatch opened. Inside, Jox saw more of Zelra's kind. They weren't monsters. They stood tall with grace and pride, their eyes curious but calm. Some looked injured. Others carried tools and medical packs. One stepped forward, a female with golden markings along her face. Zelra, she said warmly, you returned. I brought the last light, Zelra said, holding the orb out with both hands. The Spider Woman. Took it carefully. And a human? Jox nodded. Name's Jox. I saw what the orb showed. I know the truth. And you still stand beside her? Not just beside her, he said. With her. I owe her my life. The Spider Woman looked around at the crew. Prepare the Queen's memory for full projection. All colonies, all channels. It's time the galaxy chooses. They led Jox and Zelra inside the bigger ship. It was peaceful, warm lights, soft air, and not a single weapon in sight. In the central chamber, the orb was placed into a crystal console. Lights surrounded it, then stretched upward like a star map forming. And then the voice of the Queen returned, not just as images, but as sound. Her words echoed across space, through open rebel channels, secret satellites, and hidden networks. She told the truth of her people, of the ones who wore false skins, of the lies that built the war. Back on Earth and on distant colonies, people watched. Some doubted, some cried, some turned their weapons away from alien targets. Within hours, protests began. Soldiers refused orders. Civilians demanded answers. News channels played the memory loop again and again. The lie was broken. In the chamber, Jox stood beside Zelra as the broadcast ended. You did it, he whispered. No, she said. We did it. The golden-marked Spider-Woman turned to Jox. You will never be safe again, human. They will hunt you for what you did. Jox smiled. Let them try. I already made peace with that. She nodded. Then we offer you protection. A place among us, if you choose it. Zelra's eyes widened, hopeful but quiet. Jox looked around. At the spider folk. At the ship. At the future he never expected. I'll stay, he said finally. Not because I have to, but because it's right. Zelra stepped forward, her voice soft. There is more to rebuild than just truth. There are hearts that must heal. He reached for her hand. Her claws trembled slightly as she took his. I'm ready, Jox said. They stood together, man. And Spider-Girl, enemies once. Now partners, survivors. Truth-bearers. And somewhere in the stars, the first seed of peace took root. Not with weapons. But with one act of trust. And the courage to believe an enemy could become something more.